Don't touch my baby. You're disgusting. The words came from my sister's mouth like a blade, sharp enough to cut through the air and slice into me. Her voice wasn't just protective, it was venomous, dripping with disgust. As if my very presence near her child contaminated the room. I froze, my hands half extended. The tiny bundle of life I only wanted to hold now walled off by her glare. The room went silent, even the baby, mid-whimper, quieted as if she, too, could feel the violence of my sister's tone. I swallowed, heat rising in my throat, but said nothing. My body stiffened, and I let my hands fall back to my side. Her husband didn't speak. He just stood there, shifting uncomfortably, pretending to straighten a chair as if silence could erase what had just happened, but silence doesn't erase. It carves itself deeper. My name is Emily Carter. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been treated like a stranger in your own family? That day, I was not a sister. I was not an aunt. I was not blood. I was dirt on her shoe, something to be brushed away before I stained her perfect world. And here's the cruelest part, she knew I had invested in her company. She knew every dollar that flowed into her business came with my name, my trust, my faith in her. And still, she chose humiliation. The scene replays in my head like a reel, her lips curling, the way she clutched her child tighter, the disgust in her eyes. A single sentence, delivered like a verdict. You're disgusting. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't even excuse myself. I just stayed quiet, because sometimes silence is the sharpest response. Sometimes silence hides the storm that's coming, and a storm was building inside me. In that moment, something shifted. The invisible thread of sisterhood snapped, burned away. I realized the bond one had cherished all my life meant nothing to her. I was expendable, disposable, but she didn't know me. She didn't know the depth of my patience. She didn't know how cold I could become when pushed. She didn't know that my silence wasn't weakness, it was calculation. That day, she thought she won. She thought she had put me in my place, but I left her house with a straight face, my heart a furnace of betrayal. And a single thought echoing louder than her insult: she will never see me coming, because family isn't supposed to destroy you, but when they do? Sometimes the only thing left is revenge, and mine had already begun writing itself. I didn't sleep that night. The words, "You're disgusting," kept crawling under my skin like parasites, replaying in my head until they weren't just words anymore, but an anthem of everything my sister thought of me. By dawn, I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how blood could curdle into poison so easily. But then another thought broke through the noise. Her company. 3 years ago, she came to me with a dream and empty pockets. She begged me to believe in her, told me she just needed seed money to get started. She painted visions of success, of independence, of making our family proud, and I believed her. I emptied my savings account, $120,000, and wired it to her. I signed papers as a silent investor. I gave her more than money. I gave her trust, and what did she give me in return? A slap in the face, disguised as a sentence. That morning, I sat at my desk with a mug of untouched coffee, opening every document, every contract, every email chain tied to her business. My eyes scanned for weaknesses, for clauses, for the escape hatch I had tucked away but never thought I'd use, and there it was. Like a gun I had left loaded in a drawer. One clause. If I withdrew my investment, she had 30 days to repay me in full. Not refinance. Not delay. Repay, every dollar, plus interest. Her company wasn't liquid enough for that. I knew it. She knew it. The moment I pulled my money, she'd be standing on the edge of a cliff with no bridge. I leaned back in my chair, fingers pressed together, pulse steadying. For the first time since her words, I felt control. But revenge isn't about rushing. It's about timing. I waited. I showed up at family dinners that week, quiet but observant, listening to her brag about new contracts and expansion plans. I smiled politely as she passed her baby around the table, never to me, of course, and let her bask in her own arrogance. Inside, I was already gone. 1 week later, the papers were ready. My lawyer, a sharp man with no patience for sentiment, slid the withdrawal notice across the table. "You're sure about this, Emily?" he asked. I stared at the document, at the neat rows of letters and numbers that carried the weight of an empire. My sister's empire. I didn't hesitate. Yes. The pen scratched across the paper, my signature blooming like inked vengeance. In that moment, I didn't just pull out of her company. I pulled the floor out from under her, and as the ink dried, I whispered to myself, she never saw it coming. The email went out at 9 a.m. sharp. One line. Crisp and clinical, effective immediately. I am withdrawing my full investment as outlined in our agreement. 30 days remain for repayment. I didn't even sign it, Emily. Just E. Carter. Cold. Distant. Professional. By 9:15. My phone was vibrating non-stop. Calls. Texts. Emails. By 9:30. My sister's name lit up the screen. I let it ring. At 9:45, another call, her husband this time. Straight to voicemail, and by 10 o'clock, I finally answered. Emily, she hissed, voice sharp, already cracking under panic. What the hell is this? Some kind of mistake? I let the silence breathe before I answered. No mistake. You can't just pull out like this. I can. And I did. Check the clause. Her breath caught on the other end, like the floor had just tilted beneath her. She knew the clause. She had laughed about it once, saying it would never matter because family doesn't turn on family, but family had already turned. You're going to ruin me, she whispered, her voice small now. Fragile in a way I had never heard. No, I said slowly, each word deliberate. I'm just taking back what's mine. There was silence. Then the sound of her baby crying in the background, piercing, raw. Her voice hardened again. You're disgusting, she spat. Even more than I thought. Click, the line went dead. I sat in my kitchen, phone still warm in my hand, staring at the quiet hum of the refrigerator. Something in me should have hurt. Some tiny piece of me should have felt guilty, hearing her desperation, her fear, but there was nothing, only clarity. By the next morning, the whispers had already begun. Mutual friends. Family. Colleagues. Did you hear about the Carter sisters? Emily pulled her money out. The company's sinking. Her empire, once shiny and full of promise, was cracking in real time, and all I had to do was watch, and I did. I watched her Instagram posts slow down, then stop. I watched her cheerful newsletters go silent. I watched her face grow tight and tired at the few family dinners she still showed up to, and every time she caught my eye across the room, I held her gaze. Not cruel. Not smug, just steady, because she needed to understand, this wasn't an accident, this was consequence, and the thing about consequence is, it doesn't arrive with mercy. It arrives with precision. 2 weeks. That's all it took for the cracks to show. I was sitting in a cafe downtown when I overheard two women at the next table whispering her name. My sister's name. She missed payroll again, one of them said, stirring her latte nervously. My cousin works there, he hasn't been paid in 3 weeks. The other woman leaned in. I heard investors are pulling out. They say the whole company's about to fold. I sipped my coffee, calm, steady, invisible to them. Inside, though, a cold satisfaction pooled in my chest. It wasn't joy. It wasn't gloating. It was something deeper. Justice. Maybe. That weekend, my phone buzzed with a family group chat notification. Pictures of my niece's first birthday party. Balloons. Cupcakes. My sister, smiling too wide. Like plaster over a cracked wall. I zoomed in, her eyes told the truth, dark circles. A hollowness she couldn't filter out. She hadn't invited me, of course. I hadn't expected her to. But I saved the photo anyway. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Masks always slip. The following Monday, I got a call from my lawyer. She's asked for an extension, he said. His tone was neutral, but the silence beneath it wasn't. No extensions, I replied. My voice didn't even tremble. You understand this will bankrupt her? I closed my eyes, letting the weight of that truth settle. Bankrupt. My sister. The girl I grew up sharing a bedroom with. The girl I once braided hair with before school dances. Yes, I whispered. I understand. By Friday, the first news article hit, promising startup facing financial crisis. Her company's name was bolded, her photo front and center. In the picture, she looked polished, confident, an image from better days. But the headline shredded it to pieces. I read every word, twice. My phone buzzed with more messages, more gossip. Some family members called, confused, asking if it was true. Others didn't call at all, and through it all, she stayed silent, until one night. It was late. My phone lit up with her name. For reasons I can't explain, I answered. Her voice was jagged, broken. Emily, please. I don't have it. I can't repay you in full. The business is falling apart. The employees? They're looking at me like I'm a fraud. Please. For the briefest moment, I heard the girl she used to be, the sister who once held my hand when I was scared, who whispered secrets to me in the dark, but then I remembered her voice at that kitchen table. Don't touch my baby. You're disgusting, and the furnace inside me reignited. I gave you everything, I said softly. And you spat on it. This isn't about money anymore. This is about respect. And you lost mine. Her breath cracked on the other end. A sob and then, silence. The day her company officially collapsed, the city felt louder than usual, horns, chatter, footsteps. The rush of people living lives untouched by her ruin, but inside her office building. It was a funeral. I know, because I went not to gloat, not to revel, but to witness. The lobby was packed, employees with boxes, filing out with hollow faces, the sound of cardboard scraping against desks echoing like a dirge. A few whispered, a few cursed her name outright. But most were quiet, like soldiers retreating after a lost war. When I stepped inside, some eyes flicked toward me. A few recognized me. The silent investor. The ghost behind the curtain. I felt their stares, sharp and questioning, but no one spoke. I took the elevator up. Her office door was ajar. She sat at her desk, surrounded by scattered papers, her laptop shut as if closing it could erase the mess. Her shoulders were hunched, her hair pulled into a careless knot, mascara smudged under her eyes. She didn't even look up when I walked in. You're here to see the damage? She asked, voice flat. No, I said. I'm here to see the truth. That made her look at me. Her eyes were red, glassy, but still full of fire. The truth? The truth is you destroyed me. You pulled the rug out from under me when I trusted you. I leaned against the doorframe, calm, steady. The truth is you destroyed yourself the moment you decided to humiliate me. You forgot who put this roof over your head. You forgot who believed in you when no one else did. Her lip trembled, but she held my stare. You could have forgiven me. Forgiven, the word hung in the air, absurd and heavy. Forgiveness, when she had spit venom at me in front of her child, in front of her husband, stripping me of dignity as though I was less than human. I could have, I said finally. But you made sure I wouldn't. For a moment, she broke. Her face crumpled, and she pressed her palms into her eyes like a child hiding from the world. A sob tore out of her, raw and unpolished. I almost reached for her. Almost. But then I remembered the look in her eyes that day. That disgust. That cruelty. So I didn't move. I let her sit in the ruins she built. When I left, the office was nearly empty. Just echoes and the smell of stale coffee. I stepped into the cool air outside, the city buzzing around me. Alive and unbothered, and that's when I realized, revenge doesn't always roar, sometimes it whispers, sometimes it just lets the silence do the talking, and in her silence, in the hollow of her downfall, I found something I didn't expect, peace, but the story wasn't over, because peace doesn't erase scars. It only makes you wonder what comes next. The weeks after her company collapsed were strangely quiet. No more late-night calls. No more desperate messages. No more photos of my niece sent to the family chat. Silence can feel like oxygen, or like poison. And this silence was both. I found myself scrolling through old pictures one night. Me and her as little girls, barefoot in the backyard, faces sticky with popsicles. Her in a prom dress, me kneeling at her feet, pinning the hem so it wouldn't drag. Us at Thanksgiving, years ago, pressed shoulder to shoulder, laughing so hard our stomachs hurt. Those girls? Those sisters? Where had they gone? Somewhere along the line, love had curdled into envy, envy into distance, distance into venom. And maybe my revenge hadn't just destroyed her. Maybe it had destroyed what little remained between us. I stared at my reflection in the dark glass of the window. The city lights behind me flickered like ghosts, and for the first time since I signed those papers, I asked myself the question I had been avoiding: had I gone too far? I could still hear her voice on the phone. That night she begged. The cracks in it. The sobs she couldn't swallow. For a moment, I saw not my rival, not the woman who had humiliated me, but my sister. My blood and guilt slipped in like a draft under the door, but then another memory rose. Sharper, heavier. Don't touch my baby. You're disgusting. The disgust wasn't imagined. It wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was pure. It was deliberate, and in that moment, I remembered why I stayed quiet. Why I signed the papers. Why I let her crumble, because forgiveness without respect isn't forgiveness. It's surrender point. One afternoon, I drove past her old office building. The sign had been taken down, the glass windows covered in paper. A for lease sign hung crooked on the front door. Her empire, reduced to vacancy, but that wasn't the part that stopped me. It was her car, parked on the curb. She was sitting in the driver's seat, staring at the building as if she could will it back to life. Her face was pale, hair unkempt, her hand resting limply on the wheel. She didn't see me. I watched her for a long minute, my fingers tightening around the steering wheel. For the first time, I saw her not as my enemy, but as a hollowed-out version of herself. I could have rolled down the window. I could have said something. Anything, but I didn't. I drove away, the image of her burned into me, because some distances can't be crossed. Some things can't be mended, and some silences are permanent. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. I was coming out of the grocery store, arms full of bags, when I saw her. My sister, she was standing by the curb, her daughter on her hip, hair pulled back in a messy knot, clothes wrinkled, eyes ringed with exhaustion. She looked nothing like the polished woman who once ran boardrooms and signed contracts with a flourish. She looked ordinary. Fragile. When our eyes met, she froze. For a second, it was like time rewound, two little girls again, caught between fight and forgiveness. Then she crossed the street. Emily, she said, her voice cracking on my name. I set the bags down. Anna. We stood there, two women with the same blood, the same history, separated by a canyon we had both carved. Her daughter fussed, reaching for me with tiny hands. For a moment, my heart clenched. Instinct screamed to reach back, to hold her, to feel the warmth of innocence untouched by all this ugliness, but Anna pulled her child closer, almost unconsciously. Like a reflex, and just like that, the knife twisted again. I lost everything, she whispered. Her eyes shone, but not with fire this time, with emptiness. The company, the house. Friends won't even return my calls. You've made your point. Was it worth it? Her words fell between us, heavy as lead. I wanted to tell her the truth, that revenge doesn't feel like triumph. That justice doesn't always taste sweet. That I wasn't sure if it was worth it at all, but instead, I asked her the question that had been rotting inside me since that day. Why? My voice shook. Why did you say it? Why did you look at me, your sister, and call me disgusting? Her lips parted. For a heartbeat, I thought she'd apologize, that maybe, finally, I'd hear remorse. Instead, she looked down at her daughter. Because I was jealous. Because you always had the strength I didn't. And I hated you for it. The confession was small, almost inaudible. But it detonated inside me. All this, our war, her downfall, my revenge, rooted not in truth, but in her own shadow. Her envy. For the first time, I saw her not as the villain of my story, but as something more tragic, a woman eaten alive by her own insecurities. She looked up, eyes glassy. Do you hate me? I studied her, really studied her, the trembling lips, the child clinging to her, the brokenness where arrogance used to live. No, I said finally, my voice steady. But I'll never forget. Her eyes filled, and she nodded like she already knew. We stood in silence until a car honked nearby, breaking the spell. She turned, clutching her daughter, and walked away without another word. I didn't stop her. Some stories don't end with reconciliation, some just. And weeks passed. The silence between us became permanent, like a wall no one dared to climb, and yet, life kept moving. Her company's name faded from the news. New startups rose, new scandals took the spotlight. The city swallowed her failure the way it always does, fast. Indifferent, without ceremony. But for me, the echo stayed. Some nights I lay awake replaying it all, the words, the downfall. The look in her eyes as she whispered that single word. Jealousy had poisoned her. Revenge had hardened me. And somewhere between the two, whatever was left of sisters had died. One evening, I walked along the waterfront, the air cool, the water silver beneath the moon. I thought about the girl she used to be. The girl who braided my hair before school. The girl who once pressed a bandage to my scraped knee. The girl who, for a moment in childhood, loved me without envy. I mourned her, but I didn't mourn the woman she became, because cruelty disguised as sisterhood is no sisterhood at all. And I realized My revenge wasn't about destroying her business. It wasn't even about the money. It was about reclaiming myself. She had tried to strip me of worth with one sentence. She had tried to make me small, to humiliate me into silence, but I chose a different silence. The kind that doesn't shrink, it sharpens, and in the end, I didn't just pull my investment. I pulled myself out of her shadow. That was the real victory, not her downfall. Not her tears. My freedom. I stopped at the edge of the pier, the water dark and endless. For the first time in months, I breathed without heaviness. Some stories end in reconciliation. Ours didn't. Some scars fade. Ours won't, but scars don't always mean weakness. Sometimes, they mean survival, and survival, in its own way, is revenge.